Yellowstone supervolcano. This is the latest on Express UK by Callum Hoare. How the park closed after the Caldera uplift caused a 100 degrees Celsius ground temperature. That's boiling, of course. That's 212 Fahrenheit. They do monitor the temperatures around the various areas that they have, especially around the geysers. They've just updated the monitors, maintained them, and have them running properly, especially in the Norris Geyser Basin, where they have the Steamboat Geyser and the Ledge Geyser going off. Yellowstone supervolcano scientists recommended that parts of the national park's trails should be closed after recording an uplift in the caldera. This was revealed during a lecture. Yellowstone Caldera supervolcano, as we know, is under the Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming, Montana, Idaho. It sits between the states of, it's on basically Wyoming, neighboring Montana, Idaho, consistently monitored by the USGS, and also the earthquakes are by University of Utah. And due to its capability to inflict disaster on a global scale, if it erupts, it is of course dangerous and is a supervolcano. The last event of this kind has not happened for more than 630,000 years. We're talking about the super eruption. And serious eruption was 70,000 years ago. There have been another 80 eruptions since the 70,000 year eruption. And the geologists in charge of this lecture informed us that the serious eruptions take place about every 6,000 years, and we're 10,000 years overdue for a serious eruption having to do with the region of Wyoming. In 2003, changes at the Norris Geyser Basin. We're having changes now, by the way, with Steamboat Geyser going off and also Ledge Geyser. So changes in the Norris Geyser Basin of 2003 resulted in the temporary closure of some trails in the basin. The new fumaroles were observed. Several geysers showed enhanced activity and increasing water temperatures. Jacob Lowenstein, who was tasked with monitoring the activity for USGS, revealed during a lecture at Menlo Park, California, why the park had to close. He said in his 2014 lecture, around that time there was a lot of hydrothermal activity in the Norris Geyser Basin area and a new linear vent that formed at Nymph Lake. It formed some really loud jet-like thermal features, and a lot of trees died in the area in that time, and park geologists spent quite a bit of time documenting the changes. Now, before I go on further with this, let's remember that they have found a new thermal area with dying trees. They found that through the tracking, overhead satellite tracking of Yellowstone. They found a new thermal area northwest of West Thumb Lake. West Thumb Lake is the western part of the Yellowstone Lake, which sits on top of the roof of the magma chamber. And they will be going to inspect that area now that the geologists have gone out. They've gone out now in May. We saw the video before this one on Yellowstone that they had to dig through 4 feet of snow to position the new GPS monitors in their locations. So you can understand that it's still very difficult to get into these areas. Anyway, later that summer there was a whole region, they say, in the Norris Geyser Basin. It was the Black Basin, where there was anomalous activity in a lot of the geysers, and the ground temperature was increasing greatly, and a lot of pools that were turning into steam vents or fumaroles. So you can imagine the water was turning into boiling. Amazing. Or there were where the water was accumulating from vents, water vents, that was coming out as steam and boiling. So that was not a good sign. Obviously, there was a lot of increase in temperature underneath. He says, here's an example of a thermal image taken on one of the trails. You can see some of the temperatures are hitting above 50 degrees Celsius, but some reached the boiling point of water. If you were walking barefoot, you would have been pretty uncomfortable, so the Park Service closed off the back basin for a period of about a month, and things cooled off and went back to normal. However, after carrying out an analysis of this activity, one USGS scientist noticed that there was an uplift deformation. It was growing up in the caldera, and he believed this was caused by magma to seep under the trails. Can you imagine? Magma seeping under the trails? God forbid. Mr. Lowenstein added, another thing that happened in this time period was Steamboat Geyser. It went off 6 different times between the year 2000 and 2005, with most of them happening in 2002 and 2003. Well, what would he say now that Steamboat Geyser is going off every single week? Now, they have told us that Norris Geyser Basin is deforming, inflating. It's getting hotter. And not only is Steamboat Geyser going off every week, now Ledge Geyser, which is also in Norris Geyser Basin, is also going off. So there's a tremendous amount of activity there. Unfortunately, they did not, Steamboat Geyser started going off last March, but they did not have a temperature monitor there because, I don't know, something was wrong with it. They didn't have one there anyway. They just now positioned a thermal monitor. I think it was May 19th that they put one in. And now we have the temperature of close enough to Steamboat Geyser. We see the temperature goes up just about every week before it blows off. The temperature really increases from like 0 centigrade to 50 centigrade. So you can understand how hot it is. Here he was saying that 6 different times in 6 years? Wow. Well, now we have it every week, so that is a huge difference. He went on to say that then it went to bed, after 2005. It did not erupt again until 2013. Well, what was he saying? I don't know what they're saying. They're not saying much now compared to what the activity is, which is really increased in Yellowstone. And as this is not fear-mongering, we're just comparing to what was said 5 years ago in this lecture and what's happening now. I mean, if they thought that 6 times in 6 years Steamboat erupting was really bad, what's happening now is really something out of this earth. So he says, our colleagues Chuck Wicks created an interferogram with the northern part of the caldera which experienced uplift. He hypothesized that the uplift in the area may have caused some magma to get inside and push up on the crust. So these explanations that they gave then as geologists, of course, would be relative to what's happening now. The temperature and the uplift increase had to do with the magma pushing up on the crust. It's the same thing happening now, in other words. He hypothesized the uplift in the area may have caused some magma to get inside and push up on the crust, quote unquote. And he goes on to explain that causes tension and may have been enough to allow more of the deep theming fluids to get out and cause the ground heating. Of course, that's just logical. It comes after Mr. Lowenstein revealed how more than 500 earthquakes between December 2008 and January 2009 made USGS very nervous, quote unquote. He said, quote, this was a pretty nervous time for us, not because there was a lot of earthquakes, but because people were getting rather agitated about things happening beneath the lakes. Lakes freak people out for some reason because they can't see what is happening. Some people just hypothesized all sorts of crazy stuff, and it was a very serious, nervous time. There was a lot of earthquakes, but there was never any steam or anything more than small earthquakes. So I'm sure we'll have more coming up concerning what's being explained, and we'll keep you updated on this. This is important. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.